Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather on the 26th day of August. I'm David Percy. And up first, we've got wet, windy weather over southern Alaska through the weekend. Strong northwest winds moving across the Bering Sea, bringing gale force gap winds to the eastern Aleutians and western Alaska Peninsula, especially on Sunday. Chances for rain showers through the weekend across all of southern Alaska. Some areas may be a little drier on Sunday than Saturday. Otherwise, showery weather expected over south central Alaska through the weekend as well. And again, Sunday might be a little drier with the exception of the North Gulf Coast. And then periods of local heavier rain may occur, and that would be out along the outer coastline, Prince William Sound, Cordova, Valdez, those areas, Seward. And from there, special weather statement from the Fairbanks Forecast Office. More rainfall for the western interior, especially looking at the Kobuk and Noatak valleys, where they've had 2 to 4 inches of rain over the last 4 days and might pick up another 1 to 2 inches this weekend. So that will, otherwise, a weather system will continue to bring rain to the west coast, western interior through Saturday morning. Heaviest rain continues to impact portions of the south faces of the western Brooks Range. And this will cause minor rises on smaller rivers and streams in the Kobuk and Noatak valleys. You can see forecast through Saturday morning up to half an inch of rain in Kivalina and Kotzebue, as well as Buckland and Ambler, possibly as much as an inch through Saturday morning, as well as Hughes, Galena, 1/4 to a half inch possible, Nome, 1/10 to a 1/4 of an inch. And from there, for the 5-day outlook for southeast Alaska. Well, today, Friday, was pretty much spot on with the clouds and showers there. And for Saturday and Sunday, multiple rounds of potentially heavy rain with Gulf winds 25 to 35 knots, 15 to 20 knot winds through the inner channels. And then Monday and Tuesday, additional heavier rain is possible, both Monday and Tuesday. We'll have to wait and see as far as the effects it'll have on river rises. And from there, satellite imagery showing lots of clouds over all interior Alaska, with the frontal boundary pushing eastward across the Gulf, drying out over Kodiak, Alaska. Into Bristol Bay today, a little drier conditions with that weak system, some clouds trailing across the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, but not much precip reported there today. Otherwise, heaviest rainfall amounts were like along the North Gulf Coast and then back over out to the west of the Alaska Range, and lighter amounts north of the Alaska Range over the eastern interior, but a lot of cloudiness all the way up to the Arctic coast. Rolling this through again, good westerly flow across the Bering Sea, pushing that system in and across the Gulf of Alaska today, pushing rain into the northern panhandle, and eventually will reach the southern areas. You can see that just to the west of Prince of Wales Island, that area of cloudiness that stretches back to the Alaska Peninsula. I'll be moving in tonight, tomorrow, and in through the weekend. And northern Bering Sea, low pressure there, tracking in toward the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, bringing another round of precipitation in there currently and into early this evening. That'll be tracking eastward as well. On the chart today, front moving in, weak low developing there just south of the Kenai Peninsula. That brought about 3/4 of an inch of precipitation to Cordova today. Otherwise, back to the west, Sleep, Butte, and Flat both had about half an inch of rain, and Nome about 1/3 of an inch, and rain pushing into northern Panhandle. Juneau picking up just under 1/10 of an inch earlier today, but that'll increase here over the next 12 to 24 hours for sure. And moving on to the wind gusts, let me back that up. A little gusty on the winds there through the passes of the eastern Alaska Range. At Elda Junction, seeing winds gust to 35 miles an hour today. And then Bristol Bay with that gradient there, and the Kuskokwim Delta seeing winds gusting from the southwest 25 to 30 miles an hour. And we'll see winds start to increase over the central Bering Sea with higher pressure building out to the west there. And then the low right along the southwest coast. Another weak low, that one drifts northward. So periods of rain tonight, south central Alaska starts to end from southwest to northeast. So it may end over Kenai Peninsula and Cook Inlet, but stays wet from the North Gulf Coast. Rain increases over the central panhandle and begins to increase over the southern southeast coast, definitely for Prince of Wales Island, Copper River Basin, rain and showers, kind of showery conditions for the western and southwest interior, with some rain again continuing up around the Kobuk-Noatak valleys. A little bit of light rain, fog, and drizzle in store for the Arctic coast, western north slope, but those amounts are quite light. And again, north of the eastern Alaska Range, maybe some showers in the mountains north of Fairbanks, but those won't amount to too much. And otherwise dry for the eastern Brooks Range, eastern north slope on out to the Arctic coast. Possible low clouds and fog, IFR flying conditions along the coast, and of course out over the open water. And winds start to increase for the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians a little bit, especially for the Fox Islands tomorrow, picking up, and a little windy for the Pueblos, possible gusts 30 miles an hour to the north and northwest there, but dry conditions in those areas. Scattered showers for the Alaska Peninsula tend to get a little more widespread as you get up toward Bristol Bay. Isolated showers Kodiak Island, and showery across southern Alaska. Cloudy skies with showers south central Alaska, Mananuska-Susitna Valley into the Copper River Basin, and the rain becoming a little lighter there for the North Gulf Coast, but look for periods of rain for the panhandle. So that batch of moisture brings heavier rain southward now to Prince of Wales Island and in toward Dixon Entrance. Still dry for the north slope and the Arctic coast north of the Brooks Range with low clouds and fog. Showers, though, with areas of rain over the western interior. High pressure clears it out over Adak and Atka, looking good out that way. And for the outlook on Sunday, next front, weak front, pushes into that area of high pressure, and the high has a weakening effect on the front, and the front has a weakening effect on the high. So just some light rain, fog, and drizzle. Small craft advisory winds forecast into the western Aleutians from Kiska to Shimianatu, about 25 knots. Otherwise, pretty light for the central Aleutians. But small craft advisories here both days, Saturday and Sunday, for the Fox Islands. Those northwest winds, possibly gusting 35. King Cove, Falls Pass could see gusts to 40 plus, maybe, and winds diminishing for the Pueblos. Showers again, maybe a little more scattered, maybe some drying over northern Cook Inlet into the Mananuska-Susitna Valley areas, Copper River Basin. But another band of moisture brings periods of rain up to the North Gulf Coast and Prince William Sound area, and sort of drying out along the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta area. Still some lingering showers over the Kuskokwim Valley, and periods of rain going over the southern panhandle, but next batch of moisture is starting to move in during the afternoon and may start to pick the winds up. May hold off till Sunday evening, but definitely another round of rain coming in for Sunday night and Monday and the first of the next week. But showers now across much of the eastern interior. A little bit better chance now, especially north of the Alaska Range, up into the Yukon Flats to the southern slopes of the eastern Brooks Range. And more of a hit and miss light precipitation pattern continues for the north slope and the Arctic coast. And for low temperatures tonight, in the lower 50s for the Panhandle, near 50 for the North Gulf Coast. Upper 40s, though, for Prince William Sound. Upper 40s to lower 50s, south central Alaska, Bristol Bay. Mid 40s for the Copper River Basin, Kuskokwim Valley, upper 40s, lower 50s for Kodiak. Highs for Saturday afternoon, 55 to 60 in the Kuskokwim Valley, upper 50s to near 60 at Kenai Peninsula and the Mananuska and Susitna Valley. Mid 50s for the Copper River Basin, in the 50s for the North Gulf Coast. And upper 50s to lower 60s for the Panhandle, again, lower 60s down to the south, near 60 Kodiak Island, mid-50s Bristol Bay. Lows the following morning, mid-40s out west there, Bristol Bay, Kuskokwim Valley, mid-upper 40s for south central Alaska, near 40, a little cooler there in the Copper River Basin, and upper 40s for the North Gulf Coast, upper 40s to mid-50s for the Panhandle, near 50 for Kodiak. Highs, upper 50s, Kodiak Island, kind of recovering a little bit there, lower 60s for Bristol Bay. Also, mid-60s there for the Susitna Valley. Again, might be a little drier, maybe a few sun breaks possible for even the Kenai Peninsula and Mananuska Valley and Copper River Basin. Not so for the North Gulf Coast, upper 50s there. And 60 to 65 for the southern Panhandle, 50s up to the north. 30s for the lows for the Arctic coast, otherwise 40s in the interior. And then highs tomorrow, mostly in the 50s, maybe pushing 60 or lower 60s, central upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country there, Yukon Flats, otherwise 40s for the Arctic coast and the Bering Strait. Lows the following morning in the 40s south of the Brooks Range on out in the 30s. followed by highs in the 50s to lower 60s. Again, warmest over the eastern interior, coolest north of the Brooks Range and out toward the Bering Strait coast. And then the lows tonight, 40s for the most part, some areas near 50 for the Bering Sea, Aleutian, southwest coast. Mid-40s for the highs for the St. Lawrence Island area, otherwise everywhere else in the 50s, mid to upper 50s over the inland areas. And Sunday morning lows, mid to upper 40s along the coast and inland, near 40 for St. Lawrence Island, mid-40s for the Pribilofs, and 40s to near 50 for the Aleutians, followed by highs Monday afternoon, near 50 for the Pribilofs, and lower to mid-50s for the Aleutians, mid-40s for St. Lawrence Island.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Okay, Saturday morning, big swath of IFR from the Arctic coast down across the western interior into the Koyukuk Valley and then branching off across the Yukon River right on down into the northern Susitna Valley and part of the Matanuska Valley, Talkeetna's, western Copper River Basin down to Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, along the coast of the Panhandle, in across Lynn Canal Glacier Bay. And the other zone there covering the northern Bering Sea, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta there, Seward Peninsula, right on down across Bristol Bay to the Alaska Peninsula, improving as you head west-southwest out toward the west-central Aleutians. Not too bad, Kodiak Island into southern Cook Inlet. And for the afternoon, we've got IFR up over the North Slope and Arctic coast, and IFR in across the Seward Peninsula into the central interior into the central Yukon River Valley, and some IFR along the western Alaska Range that covers southern Kuskokwim Valley, all of Bristol Bay, north side of the Alaska Peninsula, east-southeast Bering Sea up to St. Lawrence Island, IFR for the Panhandle, IFR for Prince William Sound into the Copper River Basin. But pretty good VFR, Eastern Alaska Range and the Upper Tanana Valley area, 40-mile country, up to about Eagle, then Eagle northward, you're into the marginal VFR. And for Sunday morning, IFR for the North Slope and Arctic coast, IFR in the central interior, kind of a patch there right along the mid-Yukon River. Also for Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula, and the western Aleutians, and marginal VFR over much of the interior there. Areas of IFR for the Panhandle, and for Sunday afternoon, IFR swath there right along and near the central interior areas, right up to the eastern Arctic coast and North Slope. Marginal VFR there, Norton Sound northward to the Arctic coast and beyond. Marginal VFR also for the Matanuska Susitna Valley, Copper River Basin, Cook Inlet, and then some IFR from Kodiak Island, including Shelikof Strait there, right on up into Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, and along and off the coast of the Panhandle, but slipping into the southern southeast areas. Better conditions out over the Bering Sea. Looks like some widespread VFR showing up for the central Aleutians with just marginal VFR, Pribilofs to the Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula, and VFR for St. Lawrence Island. And Atuvig, marginal VFR for the day on Saturday. Same thing for Adigan. Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR. And rainy, mostly IFR throughout the day. And for windy, possible IFR in the southern approach, otherwise marginal. Isabel looks marginal, but improving as you get over toward Mentasta. Going to go for a VFR day there. And for Tanita, IFR, hopefully improving to marginal VFR. And Portage, IFR, but probably a little better conditions, maybe marginal on the western entrance. And Chilkoot and White looks IFR. Freezing levels about 6,000 feet over mainland Alaska into the northern Bering Sea, with a gradient now along the southern Bering Sea and Aleutians where it runs 8 to 16,000 feet, and the Panhandle about 8,000 feet. And moisture sliding east-northeastward brings some considerable moderate rime icing into the southern Panhandle, maybe a little bit up to the north there, but isolated moderate rime icing from the Matanuska Valley, southeast interior areas right on down toward Dixon Entrance, and then kind of areas of scattered light to maybe moderate rime or mixed icing over the interior down to the southwest coast. And the jet stream, strong jet out of the northwest there over the west central Bering Sea, up to 145 knots right across the central Aleutians, with the upper low complex right over mainland Alaska. A little bit of a high pressure area there over the Chukchi Sea, or actually centered over the Russian Far East. And we got a jet cutting into the panhandle up to 105 knots across the southern southeast coast. And at 9,000 feet, northerly flow at this elevation, 35 to 50 knots, strongest there just north of the central Aleutians, then swings around to the west and mostly misses the southeast coast there, about 35 knots across the southern panhandle. Pretty light over mainland Alaska. Light variable winds over much of mainland Alaska, down into the Gulf and the panhandle. 35 to 40 knot north-northwest winds out over the Bering Sea, north 40 through the Bering Strait areas. But turbulence-wise, not too bad over mainland Alaska with those light wind pattern and North Gulf Coast, panhandle. Considerable amount of turbulence, though, for the Aleutians, with some of that trying to spread into the Alaska Peninsula. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
So my heart is definitely racing. I don't know about anyone else's. This is the stuff nerds dream of.
10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6,
That's gonna
5,
happen.
4, 3, 2.
That countdown you just heard? We'll get back to that in a minute. Last episode, we saw the epic launch of ICESat-2, NASA's newest state-of-the-art ice-observing satellite. But now that that's in orbit, the pressure to deliver results is on.
Between launch and, the first ground returns, took 17, 18 days or something like this. It's a time when you're quite nervous.
9 years ago, Dr. Torsten Marcus took over as the lead project scientist for ICESat-2 during a time when the mission needed a champion.
You start fighting for a mission over, for 9 years now.
So when ICESat-2 was turned on for the first time 18 days after it was launched, only then would the science team know if the whole thing had worked. And it did.
First of all, it's kind of emotional, right? Being here, ICESat-2 was developing for 9-10 years. Project scientist. You live the mission, right?
If it sounds like there's a lot of noise in the background, that's because Torsten is being interviewed from a plane 1,500 feet in the air. IceBridge was tasked with the job of bridging the data between the end of ICESat's mission and the beginning of ICESat-2, about a 9-year difference.
The goal is that it would run until ICESat-2 launched and then would have overlap with ICESat-2 as well, so we can get a really long, well-calibrated time series from IceBridge.
As the deputy project scientist for Operation IceBridge, Brick works closely with Torsten to make sure the two missions are syncing up.
The timing was everything during that mission, which was a real challenge because not only do we need to...
Basically what you need to take away is getting an airplane and a satellite in space to fly over the same flight path at the same time and collect matching data is really, really hard. IceBridge was tasked with two objectives: check the accuracy of ICESat-2's data over land ice and over sea ice. They were able to lock in the land ice data fairly quickly in the mission, but the sea ice data...
It was really tricky. We waited day after day. Do we fly the sea ice? It's still on our list.
7, 6,
That's gonna
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mark on the overpass, 0435, 350.
Here's what just happened. A plane 1,500 feet up and a satellite 308 miles up measured the same sea ice at the same time. This moment finally linked veteran mission Operation IceBridge's data to that of its new sister mission, ICESat-2. Two projects that, until now, were separate for nearly 10 years.
It's a very satisfying feeling because you do something that is meaningful and in the bigger picture. And yeah, it's very satisfying.
Our search for knowledge doesn't end here. Grace Follow-On and ICESat-2, the two satellite missions that launched this year, will continue to bring in incredible data for the foreseeable future. The steady drumbeat of campaigns in the field goes on, but most of all, the people who look for answers will never stop searching. And from our perspective, it's pretty clear why. What is your favorite planet in the solar system?
My favorite planet is the planet Earth.
What? Earth? Really?
The Earth, obviously.
Favorite planet in the solar system? Earth, right? We live on it. It's a really important one.
Favorite planet is Earth.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Why?
when you look out at the other planets, they're absolutely fascinating. They've got all sorts of interesting systems going on. They've got dust storms. But then when you're on another planet, looking back at Earth, I mean, it's just incredible.
Whenever you go in different places, it looks so different, so amazing. It's just, I love planet Earth. It's just a very special planet. This is our home.
We've seen things far beyond the solar system. But even with all that, even the amazing things we've seen, one of the most amazing is the Earth itself.
It's got to be Earth. It's got to be Earth.
It's got to be here. I like the polar regions of here, of Earth. Yeah, sorry. It's very boring.
Earth is good.
Earth is good.
We live here, it sustains our life.
I'm not going to turn my back on it.
It's got water, it's got ice, it's got vegetation. I mean, it's rich with life. And so studying Earth is a very, very rewarding career. And I think if we were on any other planet, we would be trying to get to Earth as quickly as we could.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at the marine forecast. Along the coast of the Panhandle tomorrow, winds will be southwest at 20 knots with 9 to 10 foot seas on the central and south coast. North coast, southerlies at 20 knots. And a little breezy over portions of the inside waters for Saturday. South winds 30, gusts 45 knots for Stevens Passage, and northwest 25 for Clarence Strait. Otherwise, Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay looking at southerlies at about 15 knots. And then the outlook for Sunday. Central northern inside channels and waters, south winds 15 knots. South winds 20 knots for Clarence Strait. And for the south coast, south winds 20 to 25 knots and south 20 knots for the north coast. Prince William Sound tomorrow, light northeast breeze at 10 knots. Light variable winds 10 to 15 knots for the North Gulf Coast and the Barren Islands, seas at about 6 feet. Cook Inlet south to southwest at 15 in the forecast, and Kamishak Bay west winds 15 knots with 3 foot seas. For Sunday, Cook Inlet north winds 10 knots, seas 2 to 3 feet. Light variable winds now for Kamishak Bay. North winds at 20 for the Barren Islands, and east-northeast winds at 20 knots for the North Gulf Coast, while Prince William Sound will be looking at a north wind at 15 knots. Kodiak Island for Saturday, west to southwest winds 15 to 20 knots, and for the Alaska Peninsula, west winds 20 to 25 knots, while Bristol Bay will see a 20-knot wind sustained out of the southwest. And for the second day of the weekend, Sunday, small craft advisories for the Alaska Peninsula, northwest winds 30 knots with seas around 10 feet. Bristol Bay, northwest winds 20 knots. Kodiak Island, north winds 15 to 20 knots, seas 3 to 5 feet. For the eastern Aleutians tomorrow, west winds 25 knots, seas 7 to 10 feet. Adak and Atka, central Aleutians, west-northwest winds at 25 knots, seas just under 10 feet, and lighter winds out west from the west at 15 to 20 knots. For Sunday, small craft advisories from Shimei to Kiska, southwest winds 25 knots, otherwise central Aleutians, west-northwest at 20 knots. Small craft advisories continue for the Fox Islands for northwest winds 25 to 30 knots. Southwest coast, west-northwest winds tomorrow at 20 knots. Pribilof's west winds 25 knots, turn northwest at 25 for St. Matthew Island. St. Lawrence Island, winds will be north at 20 knots with 7-foot seas. And for Norton Sound, northeast winds at 10 knots with 2-foot seas. For Sunday, winds in the Sound there pick up a little, north at 20 knots with 5-foot seas. And we've got gale warnings along the Yukon Delta coast Sunday for northwest winds sustained at 35 knots, seas just under 10 feet. Kuskokwim Delta coast northwest at 30 knots. And for the Pribilof Islands, winds will be out of the northwest at 25 knots. And St. Matthew Island, west winds 25 knots with 8-foot seas. And up to the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, for the far eastern coast, winds will be light out of the east. And then the general east side there, north winds at 15 knots. Central coast, northwest winds 15 knots. Picks up a little bit there for the western Arctic coast out of the north at 20 knots. And then we've got small craft advisories from Cape Beaufort all the way down to Wales for north winds at 25 knots with those seas running at about 6 feet. And then the outlook for Sunday from Wales to Cape Thompson, small craft advisories, northwest winds at 25 knots, Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort, northwest at 20. And the western Arctic coast, northwest 15-knot winds, and pretty light winds from a southwest direction, call it southwest at 5 there for the central Arctic coast. And the eastern stretch of the coastline, light variable winds at 10 knots, seas maybe up to 3 feet. And for tonight again, low pressure moving across the Kenai Peninsula. Rain this evening starts to get a little more showery after midnight over the Kenai Peninsula, and especially southern Cook Inlet probably shutting off altogether. Heavier rain spreads into the central panhandle and starts to spread into the southern areas eventually. A couple of troughs will bring surges of light rain, fog, and drizzle to the Pribilofs, eastern Aleutians, and Alaska Peninsula. It stays kind of cloudy and damp over much of interior Alaska, but driest north of the Alaska Range in the eastern interior, but still some shower activity. For tomorrow, mostly cloudy with showers, southern Alaska, or areas of rain. Heaviest rain now will be over the central and southern southeast coast. And winds on the increase over the eastern Bering Sea, and that continues into Sunday. Those gusty north winds through the Alaska Range or through the Alaska Peninsula, and a little more showery. Sunday should be a drier day across southern Alaska, with the exception of the North Gulf Coast, and some more rain poised to move into the Panhandle.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.